Chairman Latour.
Here.
Vice Chair Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Berry.
Here.
Commissioner Benton.
Here.
Commissioner Brock. Commissioner Brooks.
Present.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Haynes.
Here.
Commissioner Rahman.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Vogel.
Here.
It appears we have a quorum and are qualified to do business this
Very
afternoon.
good. Very good. You've all been supplied with copies of the minutes. What would be your pleasure on approving them? Been moved, they be approved? Second, or a second? Second. Moved and seconded. If you're in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. If you're opposed, please raise your hand. Minutes are approved. Alex, would you take us through the consent agenda, please?
The Little Rock Planning Commission subdivision agenda, February 20th, 2020. Consent withdrawal items. Item B, file Z-9466, the Canis Road Office Building, short form PCD, located at 17201 Canis Road. Staff received a request to withdraw without prejudice on February 19th, 2020. Staff does not object to the withdrawal. Item number 7, file Z-9493, Black Cobra Tattoos, short form POD, located northeast of the intersection of Cantrell Road and Rummel Road. Staff received a request to withdraw without prejudice on February 18, 2020. Staff does not object to the withdrawal. The consent deferral item, item number 1, subdivision file S-867-F9, Chenal Valley Phase 30 and 31 revised preliminary plat, located east of Lamarche Drive. The applicant informed staff on February 10, 2020, the required notice to property owners was not completed in a timely manner. Therefore, the item must be deferred. As there are more than 15 days until the March 12, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, the applicant has requested consideration of the request to be placed on that agenda. Staff agrees with deferring the item to the March 12, 2020 Planning Commission agenda. Consent approval items. Item C, file Z-9468, C-Tract number 13 Alive, short form PDR, located 1800 Valentine Street. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the property to PDR, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item D, file Z-9479, O'Reilly Senior Living Facility, long form POD, located northwest of the intersection of Chenal Valley Drive and Rawling Road. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the property to POD, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item E, file Z-9481, Almond short form PDR, located at 1523 Wolf Street. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the property to PDR, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item 2, file S-1870, PBGH preliminary plat, located northwest of the intersection of Colonel Glen Road and Marsh Road. Staff recommends approval of the proposed plat and subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item 4, file Z-8716-B, John Cooley revised short form PDO, located at 24201 Burlingame Road. Staff recommends approval of the revised PDO to change the use to daycare only with 15 children, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item 5, file Z-9257-A, the Big Rock Plaza revised long form PCD, located west of Vimy Ridge Road between Big Rock Avenue and Pleasant Hill Road. Staff recommends approval of the revised PCD, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the variances to allow advanced site grading. The driveway spacing is shown on the site plan, and for Gateway Drive and Gateway Court to be constructed and maintained as private residential streets as shown on the site plan. Item 8, file number Z-9494, L squared, short formed POD, located at 7002 Highway 300. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the property to POD, subject to compliance with comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item number 9, file Z-9495, PBGH short form PCD, and located northwest of the intersection of Colonel Glen Road and Marsh Road. Staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the property to PCD, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, and the staff analysis in the agenda staff report. Item 10, file LA-0086, Ridgewood Timber Tree Harvest Variance located west of Geyer Springs Road between Green Road and Horizon Lane. Staff recommends approval of the timber harvest variance request subject to compliance with staff recommendation and comments found in paragraph D, along with the following comments and conditions. Number 1, the undisturbed buffers of 50 feet and 80 feet in width should be marked on site with paint and/or flagging. Number 2, a grading permit should be obtained prior to the start of harvest. 3, mud and debris tracked on Geyer Springs Road will be removed immediately. The temporary culvert pipes used for access to the property will be sized by a licensed engineer and removed at completion of project at those locations not used for permanent access. Number 4, any damages that occur to adjacent streets attributed to the timber harvest will be repaired immediately. 5, gates or cables should be installed at all access points at the completion of timber harvest activities to prevent dumping and public access. 6, contact the Little Rock Fire Department about the burning of all treetops and debris generated from the project. And 7, all site work will only be conducted at times allowed by the City of Little Rock Code of Ordinances. That is the consent agenda.
Thank you. The bottom line of that is items A, 3, and 6 are not on consent. We'll deal with them in a minute. Everything else is what you just heard on consent. Would there be a motion?
Yes, Chairman Latour, I move that we approve the consent agenda, including all staff comments and conditions.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, we approve the consent agenda. If you concur, raise your hand. If you don't, then it's approved. If your item was called, you're welcome to go. We're glad you came, but you're welcome to go. If you're here for the other 3 items, then just stick around. Here we go. Would you start us out on item A, if you would?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if we could we discuss just for a moment the requested bylaw waiver on item 3? Item 3 is file Z6408B, St. Bartholomew Catholic Church Parish Hall, short form POD. The requirement under the Planning Commission bylaws is that notices are to be sent no later than 15 days, or no less than 15 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. The applicant sent the notices 13 days prior to today's meeting. They are requesting that the commission consider waiving its bylaws to accept the notices having been sent 13 days rather than 15 days. So I'll allow the applicant to come up and make his case for that issue. You do also have persons present who will ask that you not waive the bylaws. That will be the only issue of discussion. We'll not discuss the merits of the case at this point. The only issue before the commission at this point is whether or not to waive your bylaws to allow the item to be heard today.
And that's the question that we do immediately, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, if we could discuss that now. My thinking is if the commission were to decide not to waive the bylaws, and there's no sense of people having to sit here in the meeting waiting to see whether you're going to hear it or not. And so I thought we would get this minor item of business out of the way, and then we can move on with the rest of the agenda.
Okay, we'll go to item 3, and the question is whether to grant a 2-day, whether to grant a waiver of the bylaws because of a shortened time of contacting, say it for me.
To allow the 13-day notice rather
There you
than
go, the notices were not done in time.
Mr. Chair, may I ask you how many cards you have on this item?
Do what now?
How many cards do you have on item 3?
1?
Just one. Okay.
Apparently now I have 2. We have 2, but the $64 question right now is the waiver of the bylaws relative to the notification shortfall. Is there a motion?
Chairman Latour, I make a motion. Okay. Or do we want to?
If you would allow me, I think it would be appropriate to hear from the applicant, allow the applicant to make that request, and then to hear from those who would be
That's fine.
opposed to
Great.
that request.
Good. That'd be the normal way. Would the applicant come up and address us, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Woods, architect representing St. Bartholomew Baptist Church. Huh? I didn't say Catholic. I said, oh, I'm sorry. St. Bartholomew Catholic Church. I thought I said Catholic. We actually had those notices ready to go out in a timely manner. What happened when I ordered the 200 foot ownership list, I gave them the church address, and so they did it, sent the list back right before we were going to get these mailed out. I realized that I really should have given them the survey because the address was for the church proper. The part of the property that we're putting the facility on is about a half a block down. So I went back to the abstract company and told them to verify that that you all have all the addresses, because if they start from only if they had gone only by that address of the church and not another couple of 100 feet down to the other end of the block, using that as 200 foot radius, then there possibly could have been some address missed. Okay, so I had them to go back and do that, which they did, and then they sent me back. They had confirmed. They confirmed that all the addresses were appropriate and were there. But and that just kind of threw me off. I'm thinking that we had mailed, and this they really kind of did that in 2 to 3 days. So a couple of days passed, and before I realized that, I had them to do that and did not go ahead and mail those notices off. And so when it kicked in, I called Dana and got them mailed off. But what I have done in the meantime is got documentation from the post office that all the receipts were received. They confirmed it was 19 of them. The post office confirmed that 16 were delivered, and there was 3 that they had to leave receipts for. So
Anything else?
that is it. I guess I was just hoping that, since we confirmed that everybody got the notices, that would be appropriate.
Thank you. It would be appropriate to vote on the variance, is that?
Again, I think it would be appropriate to hear from those that might be opposed to this specific request.
Okay. I have two cards opposed. The way this works is the applicant has up to 20 minutes. The opponents have up to 20 minutes.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Again, the issue only is whether to waive the bylaws. And so if there are people who are present who are opposed to that, which I believe there are, I think we should allow them to speak solely to this issue as to regarding the bylaw waiver.
We're going to arm wrestle after the meeting. All right. The question is on the variance, not the project itself, although one could argue that they're intertwined. Would anybody like to speak on whether the church should get the variance or not get the variance? I see. All of a sudden, I see. Now, if we already fill out a card, you're going to talk about the project depending on when the variance is voted on. So, if you're opposed to giving, if you vote for the variance, if we go with him, then you'll speak against the project later in the meeting. If we vote against him, you'll come back in 3 or 4 weeks when the whole deal is scheduled. That's what we're voting on, which even I'm confused. Yeah.
I feel like a jack in the box. I know there are people sitting behind me who are going to ask you to deny this. They may not understand the issue, but you need to come forward and ask the Planning Commission to deny this request if that in fact is what you want. I don't want them to miss their opportunity to speak.
Forgive all the confusion. Mr. Chairman, panel, I am right on behalf of the Central High Neighborhood Association to ask the Planning Board to postpone the hearing on the application for a zoning variance for the proposed Parish Hall project. Mr. Ron Woods was not able to present to Cheney, our neighborhood association, the membership, and answer questions before today's hearing. As we have also not heard directly from the diocese or the parish about the plans, we are not able to vote to support them. We would like to be able to support the parish and their plans, and we look forward to partnering with the parish in the revitalization of the community. However, it is critical that the neighborhood association have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Woods and the parish to present the plan and address the concerns of our neighbors. As you know, the Central High Neighborhood and Central High Historic District have been slowly revitalizing. We wish to ensure that this trend continues and that our historic and diverse character is preserved. We appreciate the parish's long history in our neighborhood, and we are eager to help the parish grow and invest in our neighborhood. However, we need a postponement for 1 month to ensure that this does occur. Thank you.
Before you leave, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
So as best I can tell, the 15-day notice period is designed to ensure that the neighborhood has notice of a proposed plan. And if they meet that 15-day requirement, then it is at the discretion of the applicant whether they postpone it or not, unless there's some other infirmity in the application. Is that correct? So I guess my question is, I understand what you're asking, which is you'd like the opportunity to meet with them, but had they met the 15 days, it would 100% be at their discretion. So is your position today that the two-day shortening of the notice has not provided notice to the community, and so people are unaware of it? Or is there some, what I heard you say was we would like to meet with them, and it seems to me the only way that we would not the only way, but the main reason we would deny the request to waive the bylaw is if that 2-day period did not provide notice to the community.
Yeah, so I just wanted to speak, just knowing that going forward, like I don't want to object 100%. I just want a chance for them to come talk to the neighborhood association, mainly because there's, people for, people against. I think the people against are more just don't have all the information yet. So there's a lot of confusion with it. There's other projects that have happened in our neighborhood where that process has happened. They came forward and talked with us. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there if it kind of helps the vote for the variance.
I guess
let's hear from the other card.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other card is Paul. I'll let you fill in the blank. You write like I do.
My name's Paul Dodds. I live at 2119 West 17th Street in the Central High neighborhood, and I own a house catty corner from the lot that which is proposed for parking. I'll just speak now to the variance, to whatever you're calling it, the request to waive the time, and just repeat Bobby Matthews' request for additional time so that the neighborhood could consider. And if you say no to that and have a discussion, I'll look forward to speaking to you about the merits of the case. Is that correct, Dan? That's where this is sort of a technical request for an extension. I would request that because of the notice not being met, that there be that they come back another time and we have a chance to meet with them.
Sorry, so I'll ask you the same question that I asked him. Do you believe that the 2-day shortening of the notice period has not was insufficient to provide notice to everyone? Are there people who do not know that this project is going forward?
I can't speak to other people. I don't know. I mean, I did speak to a neighbor who I believe sent a letter saying he wasn't aware of it, who owns a property nearby that might have been excluded from the might have been excluded from the first mailing. I don't know. I can't speak to all the other neighbors. I haven't had a chance to talk to everybody.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question of staff? If we weigh the bylaw and heard this item, whether it was voted yea or nay and denied, it would automatically go to the board. Is that correct? No. This is a plan.
Only if recommended for approval does it automatically go. If it's denied, it can be appealed to the board.
And either way, when would the board hear that? If it was appealed or?
Typically, it is set at because of timing of the board, it would be on the next agenda. Typically, that falls between about 20 to 40 days, depending upon when the agenda cycle is.
And when's the next Central High Association meeting? March 10th. Okay.
Chairman, please.
Thank you.
I have a question. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question, yes. So prior to now, have Mr. Woods not met with the association up until this point?
I was gone for the past month. I would address that to Bobby. I don't think he did. Huh?
Association canceled the meeting? Okay. So they have not met.
I'm trying to not step out of bounds. So,
Could you step up to the mic, please?
Go on up there.
No, we have never met and talked about it. It's never been presented as an agenda item. So a lot of this is kind of just organically coming through right now. So there's been no formal process.
Okay.
I sent the information, emailed the information to Mr. Matthews, right? On the date that they were supposed to have their association meeting, site plan, and the rendering of the project, and found out the following day that they did not meet that night. So, but the information was sent.
Was that a schedule?
We've also had email discussions since then, and I also let them know that the meeting was February 20th. This was February the 11th when I sent that. And I let them know that the meeting was going to be February 20th, and I'd be available to answer any questions.
The date that you reached out
I had a
to?
question for you. What happens, how are you affected if it's delayed 3 weeks? Do you lose your shirt or just, what happens if it's delayed for 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
We are meeting with, we have a meeting scheduled with the Catholic Diocese on next Tuesday. And so I had this kind of schedule that we got this out of the way, or needed to get this approved before we met with them.
So you don't have a contract letter or anything yet, do you?
No. But that's what we were trying. This is.
So if it was 2 weeks later, you don't lose anything other than it's an irritant. Is that correct?
Well, March is the start of construction season. So if we get delayed, we won't be able to take bids probably until April.
I have one more
Anybody
question.
else?
I want to
Oh,
go back to the question that I had. So you reached out and emailed him, Mr. Mike Matthews. You emailed him the date that you set to meet. Was that that date an association meeting date already? Just trying to get clarity.
We meet the second Tuesday of every month. We typically have agenda items brought forward. We put it on the agenda, cancel the meeting the week before. So it was already canceled by the time I got the email. The reason the meeting was canceled, we have a special election in our district for House Rep 34. Bullock Temple Church was used as a voting precinct. So
What if you had to
canceled the
call a
meeting.
meeting?
Excuse me?
Couldn't you have a call meeting and send an email out, say we're going to meet Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock?
So we did, as far as our neighborhood association meeting, the month prior in January, it was the special election. The first one was that Tuesday, so we moved it up a week. It went to a runoff, so they also went to our Tuesday meeting. Instead of moving it forward a week, we kind of, at that point, we just called it, just cancel the meeting and meet in March. But as far as being notified of the topic, we did not get that till the day of the meeting, which was canceled the week prior.
Commissioner Hart?
Yeah, quick question for the applicant. We can go ahead and vote on the variance tonight and meet on the topic. Would you rather do that knowing that there's going to be opposition to the project, or would you rather have an opportunity to meet with the neighborhood association and come back in 3 weeks? What would you rather do? Because they're going to oppose it tonight, which may or may not impact the ultimate vote, but you want to go forward with it? Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay, with that, there's a question on the floor about waiving the bylaws because we were inadequately on the notification.
Yeah, Chairman LaTour, I'd make a motion that we consider waiving the 2-day, waive the bylaws. This is very confusing. Anyway, waive the bylaws, waiving the requirement for the 15-day to 13-day notification to the neighborhood association.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Lawyer? Okay.
Let's move forward.
Is there a second?
And it,
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, if you're in favor of granting the waiver, raise your hand. You got the count? That's 6.
Chairman, to have 3/4 of the majority of the present commissioners,
Which is
so you
no-
did 7, so
Okay, I'll join them.
vote passes.
It passed? Do we have
Yes.
He's, because I counted different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're counting again. So that was 6. That fails.
It failed?
It fails.
Okay. What, passed? Failed.
Didn't fail. It didn't pass. It failed. So
Okay, now what?
now that one can't be heard today. So it is deferred. And for the timing that they need, we will talk with the applicant and see, because of notifications, if we can hit that next planning commission meeting, which would be the 12th.
With the hope that they get together with the neighborhood. Okay. Next item, item A. Alec?
Item A is the file S-1809-B, the breeding addition preliminary plat at 7718 Henderson Road. This property is approximately 4.97 acres, would create 2 lots, would not have any additional new streets. The current zoning is R2 single family. There is a variance request going along with this item to allow for a lot depth greater than 3 times the lot width. For a bit of background on this property, on April 5th, 2018, the Planning Commission denied a request to divide this parcel into 3 lots. The applicant indicated that the subdivision was requested to allow for the development of 2 additional home sites. Lot 2 would have been a pipe stem lot, and Lot 3 was indicated with the depth to width ratio variance as well. On June 28th, 2018, the Planning Commission denied another proposed subdivision plat for the property. This plat proposed to divide the property into 2 lots containing 2.26 acres and 2.71 acres. Also requested a variance to allow an increased depth to width ratio for both lots. Lot 1 would have had the existing residence on the property. Lot 2 was also approved for the installation of a subsurface sewage disposal system. The denial from the Planning Commission was appealed to the Board of Directors. A public hearing was held on November 5, 2018. The proposed plat was presented. It was stated the existing lot configuration had shorter side facing Henderson Road. Each lot would have in excess of 150 feet of width and more than 100,000 square feet in area. Those opposed to the plat suggested if the lot split were approved, other properties in the area were also likely to be subdivided, would lead to increased traffic in the area. This was denied by, the appeal was considered denied by the Board of Directors due to lack of a motion. This current proposal is a 2-lot addition. Also would note that a test pit has been dug and evaluating showing the soil is suitable for a subsurface septic system on proposed Lot 2. Lot 1 contains the existing residence and also has an existing subsurface septic system. An alternative system, should the existing system fail, has been approved preliminarily by the Arkansas Health Department for Lot 1. This property is located within the city's extraterritorial planning jurisdiction. The area is predominantly single-family homes on larger tracts and acreage. Henderson Road is a narrow road, chip and seal asphalt with no sidewalks and open ditches for drainage. Staff is recommending approval of this request, and also to approve the variance to allow Lot 1 to have a depth of more than 3 times the width, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions contained within the staff report, the agenda staff report. Would entertain any questions that the commission may have of me at this time.
The applicant present?
Debbie,
Same
Gary
setup,
Green.
you have 20 minutes, and then they have 20 minutes. You have the option of, you tell us whatever you want to tell us, and wait on them. You can hear what they want to say and come back. And however you want to use your time is up to you.
We're going to wait and let them go first. Thank you.
Very good. I got something like 6 cards. I don't know if anybody's a designated speaker. I'll just take them as they come. Seeing no designated speaker, Steve Harrison.
Sir, I just want to say that I am opposed to it. I have been opposed to it from the very beginning and still opposed to it. Thank you.
Robert McHenry.
I'm Bob McHenry, Mr. Chairman, and I'll waive my time. I'm very much opposed, and we've spoken about this on several occasions, but I'll waive my time and so allow other people to be here.
And I'll bet you're Ken, Donna McHenry.
You're right about that.
Yes, I am.
We do oppose this, and what we request and what we've requested all along, as we have said, we're in the ETJ zone. And so we don't have some of the same safety and health protection that you have in the city. Now, what we want, and all we're asking, is for y'all to obey the very variance laws that are in effect, which have criteria that the applicant has to provide proof of before this can pass. And so if you don't mind, and I don't want to bore you with your own rules and regulations, but under the criteria that shall be considered whether a variance shall be granted is 1, strict applications of these regulations would deprive the owner of reasonable use of the property. This is not true. They purchased this property. It's a single family home. It has 4+ acres. The Breedings have never lived there. Their son and daughter-in-law live there. In conjunction with that is the variance cannot be based solely on pecuniary difficulties but overriding hardships. You know, again, I'm kind of talking in a vacuum here because they haven't spoken yet to lay out what their overriding hardships are. But since, you know, we've heard and we've talked to them that this is to do a family subdivision. In this area, it's right in the middle of our neighborhood, and our neighborhood is more congested than what a normal ETJ or a rural area is. And your second criteria is why we object. Your second criteria is the granting of a variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare, or injurious to other property. The problem we have, and this is nothing personal to anyone, but since this is in the middle of our neighborhood, it's even undivided. It's only 300 feet wide and 650 feet deep. And there was a lot of gun use on the property. We do not have your gun safety laws. You can walk out back, and if you want to shoot a gun, you shoot your gun. And so we do not want this property reduced in size because of gun safety. You know, I don't know if y'all remember, but a year ago, the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette published an article that Arkansas is 7th in the nation in accidental gun deaths. And for this property to be in the middle of our neighborhood, that is unsafe. Now, we agree that since we came 3 times a year ago, the shooting has decreased in our neighborhood, and we're very, very, very appreciative. But it's all voluntary. And if y'all decrease the size of this lot, then that increases our danger. The other problem that we have, we're all on septic tanks. Used to, when my husband and I have lived out there for about a quarter of a century, used to you had to have 5 acres per septic tank. Now I understand that has narrowed. But regardless, we did have a water problem in the area. And these people that are in this main area where this house at issue is, they had a lot of leakage from the septic tanks into the wells. At great expense, they all had to bring in city water. City water doesn't go all the way around to the acreage areas, and that was cost prohibitive for us. We're still on wells. We're very, very concerned always about the safety of our water and how many septic tanks. We do not want this lot divided in to tiny little, you know, and I understand for y'all these are not tiny lots, but for us in our area, we do not want a bunch of septic tanks in an area that has already had water problems. And we're not trying to deny them anything. You know, what they purchased and paid for was a single residence home on 4+ acres of property. And that's what we want it to remain. But it's for the safety of all of us and our health issues that we request that you deny this variance. Thank you.
Michael Craig.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Craig. I've been before you before, and I won't reiterate too many issues of what Ms. McHenry said. I think she laid out a very good proposal. But in support of this, I've lived out there 30 years. And when I was in the original planning area, my house I bought, I had to have 5 acres. Fortunately, AP&L ran over my septic tank, so I had to upgrade it. Now, knowing that, we've always had some issues about septic issues and wells around the entire country. I have, in fact, prepared a short subject list and signed our neighbors, some of us that are affected by this. I want to present this to you, gentlemen, and one person who was here last time who was not able to attend right now for some health reasons. I would like to read this message. This message is from Kenneth and Janet Goss. They're on 7519 Henderson Road. We've lived on this property for 23 years. The neighborhood was under the Little Rock planning zone when we moved in. 2 or 3 houses near the property in question was grandfathered because they had less than 5 acres. 3 or 4 blocks from us, someone remodeled a house, and it appears they're using it as a business. But I can only look out for my street. If this is passed, I think we will all should be able to split our property. We love our 5 acres, yard, and our house. It's not just a place to buy or lay our head at night. So we approve, if you so approve, splitting the property, so should we. Now, I would like to give you all this. It's just five bullet points there, and the only one that hasn't been addressed is the property value, because most of us really don't want to sell our property. We bought it to be out there rural and have a nice, quiet neighborhood. We know things change, and we know people shoot guns. I shoot guns, but not on the property. It is a safety issue, and we have more that's going over beyond us now that we're trying to correct with Sheriff's Department, Game and Fish. Our state right now doesn't have too much in the way of protection for distance, but in most every other state around us, it's 150 yards or better between any building or structure. I tell you, that's pretty short in our neighborhood for some of these properties. So we just request that you understand we're not trying to deny these people the right to build a home, just not to split it up.
Thank you. Heidi Thoreau?
Good afternoon. My name is Heidi Thoreau. I live right next door to the Breedings, and this is the 5th time we've had to come down here. It's been rejected 3 other times. We came down here last month, and it was deferred. This is very frustrating for us to have to continue to come down here and disagree with the Breedings because they want to do something with their property. It's not a need. They haven't provided any proof that they need to do this to that property. They want to move their daughter onto the property. Their daughter lives 2 minutes down the road. I don't see the need for that. It's just a want to me. I have to take time off of work every time I have to come down here. That's detrimental to my own family to have to take time out to continually oppose this when this has already been rejected 3 times. I don't see why we have to continue to do this. Donna makes a very good point. She's the lawyer, so I'll leave all that legal stuff up to her. But the Breedings have owned this property for a couple of years. They've never bothered to go around to the community to see if anybody would be opposed to this, agreed to it, or anything like that. They've moved in. A lot of us know each other on the street. They've never bothered to, speak to anybody on the street that I know of. They haven't communicated. This is a small community. Of course, we know, like everybody else has said, things change, but we bought our property because of the way the neighborhood is, and we live right next door. I don't really want to see another house go up to where I don't know for a fact, but it may diminish the cost of or the value of my home or somebody else's home. It's my understanding they want to put a mobile home on there, which definitely will affect the value of my home. And we bought this property because of where it is and the location and the community and the quiet street that it's on. And like I said, I just don't understand what the need is for to divide this property. And so I am definitely opposed. Thank you.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
You said you live right next door. Do you live to the south, according to this map?
Okay, you're asking me to. I live on the, if you're looking at the house, I live on the left. I don't know what's.
You turn right or left out of your driveway?
I turn left.
Must be south.
Turn left, and then you head up Henderson, passing their property.
Yes,
So is your acreage 5?
it's less.
And how did
We're
that?
we're one of the, I guess, the grandfathered in. as
Commissioners,
they
let's
had said.
hear the applicant, then we'll ask questions after.
Well, I just had a question about their property. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McHenry?
Oh, thank you. I think Donaldson and everyone else has pretty much has taken care of it, Mr. Latour. But I would like one point. I think the ordinance requires that the applicants do have the burden of proof to show that there is a need, a legitimate need to move, to change, to vary. They've not done that. There's been no attempt to do that. It is, as Heidi said, a want rather than a need. And we ask that the ordinance be followed, and I also understand that the staff, and let me say a couple of things. One is the city attorney has been very, very good about all this. They've followed the rules, I think, and I know they represent their client and must represent the client. I did that for 50 years, Mr. Latour, I understand that. But I also want to say that the staff itself has told me that they're consistent. And they are. They've been very consistent. They've consistently failed to look at and regard and pay attention to the needs and regards of the rest of the people on our street. They have consistently failed to note that you, as a commission and the city board, have turned this down 2 times for you, 1 time for the city board. They've consistently ignored the fact that there is a requirement for the breedings. Nice folks. We have nothing against the breedings. But the breedings to show that to have a burden of proof to show that they have a real need. They have not done so. And we ask you to do as it's happened, as you have done, as the city board has done now 3 times, and to disapprove this variance or not approve the variance. And we ask you to do that and follow the ordinance as we understand it. Thank you very much.
Okay, applicant?
Okay, my name is Debbie and my husband Gary. And yes, we've been here multiple times. And actually, I want to make one statement. I'm old school. I always thought that when you buy property or you move into a new neighborhood, you have all your neighbors who come by and say, "Hi, welcome to the neighborhood. Is there anything I can do to help you?" Which we have never seen. The whole time we were making the house livable, we never saw that. So for all of a sudden somebody to show up and say, "You can't do this," and wanting to know what our intentions are, we didn't even have any intentions. We just bought the property, made the house livable. Yes, my son moved in when he got married, and we thought everything was fine. We didn't even realize we were in, and it's our fault. We didn't know to look at this. We trusted real estate people. We didn't know we were even in that 3-mile plan. We knew nothing about it. Didn't even know it existed until we wanted to add a house, and we went to the county, and they directed us to you guys. So that's the first that we even knew about it. I do have a piece of paper that I wrote out. It's not to scale. If you're interested, I'd like to show you some of the lots and things like they're talking about, if that's okay. It may hurt me. I don't know. I don't have quite. 5, they're .38.
Which one is you?
The X.
The X.
The X.
X marks the spot.
X marks the spot, yes. So they're .38. And one of the 4 of the .38 has a decrepit old mobile home on it now. So, and I'm saying that only because I don't know how adding one home site to 5 acres can limit or make the property value go down when you've got .38 with 4 houses there. Is it confusing? Is that diagram confusing?
Yeah,
Okay.
each lot next to it is .38 with houses on it with septic systems.
Yes, and we have done the, everything that you've asked us to do as far as the septic system and getting approval, having it soil tested. We've done that. We don't believe that we will create any more traffic other than 2 cars when you've already got an office space around the end of the, very end of the road where you've already approved many, many years ago, I know, office space back there, which is not on that list. But, and then I also looked on Pegasus, I think it's called, and one of those lots, if I'm looking at it right and it's worded on there, one of those 5 acres down at the very bottom when you get in the curve has 2 mobile homes on it now. So there's 3 mobile homes, one being unusable, on this road as it is. And let me go back and say that, and we've talked to them, we have, you know, we're better and we're, you know, we're talking, but not that we ever had any problem. We just didn't even know these people existed. But my daughter has been divorced since all of this started. My son-in-law, who had done the target practice, is no longer even in the town. And yes, my daughter lives close by, but it's not a very good corner that she lives on. So we would like for her to move. I want her, yes, want. I mean, I go to church, I know the difference between wants and needs, and so we do want her off of the corner that she's at, even if it's 2 minutes down the road. We, you know, it is something that we would like to see happen. So another item that I'd like to bring up is at your last meeting, when we were deferred, there was property that was approved, and it's only 3 acres, and it was approved with a pipe stem and a variance, and it's only 1 street over. So I'm not understanding how that can take place in the same neighborhood, but yet we can't on 5 acres. So I'd like to address that. I'd just like to understand a little more about that. So, and that was the file S-1866 on Shader Circle. So there is no more, it hasn't been at our place in a long time, but our neighbor to the right had a deer stand, tree stand in his own yard, and the very day that our neighbors were discussing with my daughter and son-in-law about gunfire, the people to the right of us were doing the shooting. There's no one done any shooting because their divorce has been final for 2 years in March, and he's been gone. So all of the things that they brought up is still not, it's not relevant now. He's gone, the shooting's gone, there's nothing going on. We would like to enjoy that property too, or my kid enjoy it. Like they say, I don't think it's that quiet of a neighborhood. I know there's disturbances up at the first of the road. I know there's biker groups that come through there that with multiple motorcycles. So it is most of the time good though. So we would just ask that you, this time, please really look at the paper, consider, and approve it for us finally. Thank you. Very briefly. There were some corrections. It is true that originally my husband and I, we practiced law together. We're retired. we came before you, we were granted the permission to have our law office there. But we did want to be sure that neighborhood did not change. And it was granted with the caveat that when we quit practicing law, it would revert back to a single-family agricultural residence. We don't want to change the complexity of the neighborhood. I don't know about the other neighborhood that she's speaking about. Maybe no one objected. No one objected to us when we came before you because we had the burden of proof. We went to all the neighbors. We said, you have a concern, you talk to us, and we will address your concern. That has never happened for us. And the gun safety, I admit, has been better, but it was not 2 years ago. So we are still concerned with the safety. There is an old conditional use mobile home that was allowed to come on one lot for an elderly parent to live in. Once the parent died, it's too expensive to move the to move the mobile home, and so it has remained there. But it is permanent dwellings, and the reason we don't want this cut into little bitty lots is the reason, with all due respect to everyone, where her daughter is living, why they have a problem, is they've chopped this up into little bitty lots, and there are too many people in a country space that doesn't provide the protection, health, and safety that y'all do provide in the city. So we do not want to go that route. Thank you.
I have a question, please, for you.
Hang on a second, let's be sure. Are you done?
Yes. Y'all want me to go or stay?
It's up to you.
I mean, if he has a question
I'm
for
trying
me.
to get everybody to say what they're going to say so we could ask questions. So if you're done.
Yes, I am done.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Did you want to talk anymore?
No, sir.
Okay. One more time. Come on.
I was just going to make a point that, unless I misunderstood, I didn't think they got rebuttals.
Well, they have 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I'm learning. I thought once they spoke, I spoke, and it was done. But, yeah, the divorce has been final in March, so it's been almost 2 years. And my son doesn't do any kind of shooting out there, so it's been almost in 2 years.
I have a question for you. What are on this map, the map you showed on the little thing we're looking at, all these little dots just south, what are those?
Can you show me?
On the little lots. These.
Those are the houses next to me, next to my house.
Are they houses?
They're houses, except for one that has a house and mobile home together. They're houses.
Thank you. All right, commissioners. Mr. Brooks, you've had.
You stated that there's a mobile home on a lot. Is anyone living in that, currently living in that? Okay.
No, it's been deserted for a long time.
Hey, we have to use the microphone because this is all recorded, so.
Sorry. The owner cannot afford to move the mobile home, and so we have not complained due to that. But no one does live in it.
Are they willing to allow someone to move in it? Do y'all?
Oh, well, this is it's almost a travel trailer more than a mobile home. And I doubt it because this is very small area. Their home where they live is there, and then their father lived in that mobile home.
To your house?
But I'm not speaking for them because I don't own it.
That relative to her lot.
Oh, there's about 3 houses in between.
How do you feel about all these houses to the south that appear to be on 1 acre or so?
Well, that's what we were saying. There were more houses that were not on 5 acres, but that is where the problem came in. You know, if you are on a septic tank and wells, and some of us are still on wells, and that's very important. We test ours every year to be sure that we have good water. But you can't keep adding septic tanks, and the Arkansas Health Department, if you will look at their certificate when they provide it, it says, in spite of doing everything right, in spite of doing this by our specification, specifications, that does not mean you won't have trouble. We know there's trouble because we've had it in the
Thank you.
past.
Commissioners, what other questions might you have for one of them?
I have questions for the staff. So obviously, there's a history that precedes this particular application. I see here that staff recommends approval of this particular variance. What was the staff's recommendation on the prior requests?
I believe the previous one, to my recollection, was approval, but I cannot speak for any of the prior applications. That's been a while back.
I have every one of them in my car, and they're all approved by the staff.
So there's been a lot of talk about the burden of proof on this, and I guess I'm a little bit confused about the actual what was the applicant required to show to demonstrate to the staff that the requested variance was appropriate and in compliance with whatever our standards are here?
The variance that was requested in the subdivision is we have in there for a width to depth ratio on the lot. And typically those are put in place just so you don't have long, narrow lots and subdivisions and access, through there. And then that also depends, as your subdividing gets larger, that ratio still is in place. So you do have that criteria in there that's set right now, but the width would be less than what a 50-foot wide or could be allowed even a 35-foot wide subdivision lot in there, that you have to look at what actually is being provided for the utilities. So when we look at these for that lot, and that's the only variance, the lot to width, the depth to width ratio, is would it meet compliance with the standards that's set? You got to look at the utilities provided, and we looked at also in previous applications about the septic system and can it be provided in the area that the criteria is set for ADEQ. And so that is a criteria that we look at, is can it make it with the depth ratio. And I also brought up about the pipe stem lots, that kind of falls into that same, variance too. But in a pipe stem lot on the one that was being heard, it was just access to go back to the living area, for that lot. So it's not something that's going to be used as living, it's just access. So it varies depending upon the layout of the lots that you're looking at. And so for this one, with the acreage that was going to be provided in the splits, and I want to also make the point that if it was not a variance request, then the plat would meet all requirements, and that is just the width to depth ratio and meet the Richardson case. And even at that, if it still met everything per our current ordinances, this would be considered a lot split and would be handled at staff level, not at a planning commission level. That has passed on. The board and the planning commission has approved that to be signed off at staff level if it's just a lot split.
Commissioners, other questions? Comments? Well, apparently it would be time for a motion. And I would note to the crowd, as I do every time, the motions may seem in a screwy way, but the bottom line is if we're for it, we vote yes. If we're against it, we vote no. And we phrase them in a different way.
One more question. Have there ever been plans presented to the neighbors or the community about how everything will look once everything is done or completed?
No, sir, we haven't even got that far yet. We just want.
Could you come to the mic, please?
If you're going to talk, you need to use the mic.
Sorry. No, sir, we haven't even got that far. We're just simply seeing if we can do this before we even begin to put anything else onto paper. We just know that we did mention one time about a mobile home. She has a brand new double wide, but she doesn't want it, and it would never happen. I mean, I can honestly say we will never ask for a mobile home on that property. It will be a house built. But we have not done any plans or anything. We're just in limbo.
Your answer is no. The answer is no?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner? Last chance.
Okay.
How about a motion?
Chairman Latour, I move for the approval of item number S1809, including all staff comments and conditions.
Any other comments? You heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. It was motion and seconded. If you're in favor of the motion, raise your hand. You done? If you're opposed, thank you. Passes. Thank you all. Item 6. Alec?
One second here. I'm working with my new technology.
Been there.
All right, here we are. Item 6, file Z-9286A, the merger on court revised short form PDR. This is located at 12115 Rainwood Road. Icon Development and Homes is the proposed developer for this property. Is currently owned by Susan Garner. It is 2.42 acres. The proposed development would have 13 lots. There would be no new public street involved with this development. Currently, it is already zoned for a PDR. It was rezoned back in February of 2018. This proposed development was to be a gated community with 17 attached single-family homes. Access would have been through a U-shaped private drive with traffic moving one direction, entering from the west side to the east. 9 buildings, 8 duplexes, and 1 single unit were proposed. This current proposal would be for a 0 lot line residential development consisting of 13 single-family patio homes. The homes would have 2 or 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage. A wood privacy fence would be with a height of 6 feet, would enclose the development along the east, west, and south. A brick wall is proposed to be constructed at the front, which would be along Rainwood Road with gated access. The 0 lot line homes are shown to be successful within the city. They would be marketing this toward retirees, empty nesters, as well as professionals. The property currently is largely wooded with a residential structure on there. In the area, you have single-family neighborhoods and condominium communities located across Rainwood Road. West and south, you have single-family neighborhoods, and then to the east, there's another large lot containing 2 residences. As of this time, the staff did get some comments and phone calls from area residents. When the singular concern was due to site drainage. Also, we received a letter from the Rainwood Cove Neighborhood Association expressing support for the proposal. They did meet with the developer as well as with residents of the Carrollton Court neighborhood. The things that were attractive to the neighbors were the features of the homes, plans to address stormwater runoff, the lighting, security, and traffic. They also said they engaged in a robust question and answer session with the developer after the presentation. As always, this notice was sent to all owners of the properties within 200 feet and the Rainwood Cove Neighborhood Association. More specific details with the current proposal would be that we did have a question about the lot lines. Most of the lots are 0 lot lines. There is 1 lot that would not have a 0 lot line on there. There would be a 30-foot right-of-way dedication for Rainwood Road and half-street improvements constructed with the development. They are also requesting a advanced grading permit to do the grading with the installation of the infrastructure. Public Works did request and received a preliminary stormwater and grading plan. This stormwater would be detained underground in a pipe on the property. Another variance, variance from the standards would be for the entryway to be 40-foot wide to allow for full traffic movements into and out of the site, as well as provide access for fire trucks. Public Works is in agreement and recommends approval for that additional width. Would also note that at this point, trash collection, whether it would be done by the city or would be a private matter, is yet to be determined. The Public Works has stated, based upon what they see right now, it's unclear whether the city trucks would be able to fully maneuver within the site. However, should it be constructed, they would come back and review that at that point to see if it would be possible for the city to provide the collection. Staff is in support of this revised plan and would recommend approval of the revised PDR, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F, specifically of the agenda staff report, and also would recommend approval of the variances to allow for the advanced site grading and the width of the entry driveway to be increased to 40 feet.
Okay, I have one card in favor and two cards opposing. And I don't know if the favor is the developer or not, but would the applicant care to come up? And Shelley Stein has also had a card, so she'll be next.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I know the hour's late. Has been indicated by a representative for the city. We have met with the neighbors as well as the POA associations. They gave us their full support. We would like to defer. We feel like we've been very diligent in our responses to the community and being very responsible stewards, so we're going to defer to those who oppose. Thank you.
Could I get your name, sir?
Forgive me, Rodney Chandler, Icon Homes.
Well, we're on the fours with Ms. Stein. Are y'all working together? Or? Well, I have a card. You want to speak?
I'm Shelley Stein with Coldwell Banker RPM Group, and I'd like to defer.
Hope I do this right. Janet Badeau? Is that close? I got a screen name too.
My name is Janet Badeau. I live on Pickering Drive, which is south and downhill from the proposed development. I received a letter making me aware of the developing, the proposed development. And in the letter, there were some discrepancies. For instance, it said that the main street that they would be exiting onto was Markham. And if you scroll up on the on this page to the bottom of it, keep going, please. A little bit more. Oh, okay. This one. Anyway, the bottom of it says 12115 Cantrell Rummel. This property is on Rainwood, and I called Mr. Chandler about the discrepancy on the letter and asked him for a revised version of it. I stated that I was concerned about the drainage going downhill onto my property and onto my neighbor's property. Because we already have a lot of runoff, and if they cut down all the trees and put concrete there, it's going to be problematic for me. And he said he had a 48-inch 48-inch pipe to drain. But my house is not included in the path that the drainage is, and I feel like I'm still going to get a lot of rainwater off of there, and I just want to not be flooded out by a development. My house is modest. Mr. Chandler, I actually had a meeting with the people that were north of him in the Rainwood Homeowners Association and the Carrollton Homeowners Association. I asked him to meet with my neighborhood, and I called him again and again, and he never returned my call. And I contest that he contacted, he spoke with all the neighbors. He did speak with me on the phone, and I told him about I felt that it was going to be a problem with the drainage. And I asked him to meet with us, and he just didn't have time for the modest houses, only the nice houses north of, and uphill of his project. Thank you for listening to me.
Ann Grigsby.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff, thank you. I've been up here a little more often than I'd like to. I was here last month talking about the apartment concerns on Bowman Road, but I'm here again because not only are the Baddos our best friends at church and actually anywhere, but my husband's people have lived in the area for a long time, so we're quite familiar with it. One of the ways that that we're really good friends with the Baddos is that we babysit their cat every time they go out of town, which means that we come from our house on Bowman and over there to their house, and on occasion we have had to have personal experience with the sponge that their land becomes because of the rain-off that is right behind them from this property that Mr. Chandler hopes to develop. I have probably, I think, 6 main concerns. I've written them out to try to be concise, so let me tell you why I really believe that this is not ripe for approval, because I believe there are too many unanswered questions, particularly for people like the Baddos and others who live in the neighborhood. I certainly feel very strongly that it was Mr. Chandler's obligation to speak to all the neighbors who are going to be potentially affected by this large development. One of the things that really struck me was the letter that was written to Dana Carney. It was not signed, but I recognized it from the identical letter, except for the date being changed, that I had received some months ago when Bergeron was also proposed for an area very close to the intersection of Rodney Parham and West Markham, where we do have a home close to Brady Elementary, where our son who's now out of college, but where he lives. And I remember seeing this letter, and as I read the one that Ms. Badeau had, I realized that it was identical except for the date. As a matter of fact, one of the things that puzzled me was that it was written, a minimum of 350 feet of site distance will be planned at entry to provide site clearance when turning on to West Markham. Well, West Markham really doesn't have anything to do with the current appeal, but it looks like this is the same sort of argument and is even the same sort of details that were presented to us West Markham neighbors a number of months ago, and which was defeated largely because of not only traffic concerns, but because of rainwater control. We all live in this area, and we know that we get toad stranglers, not just in the spring, but all year long. The fear of the Badeaux and others who live on Pickering and other adjacent lots is urgent, I would say, because the water runoff plan has to be sufficient to ensure these adjacent residents that they're not going to be living in, have their own pool in a backyard. One of the things that was in the very small print on one of the maps that was also available is that the site data map notes the site is covered by underbrush and some mature trees. The fact of the matter is this is actually an urban forest. There are a great number of mature oak trees. My husband is a forester, has been very intimately connected to forestry and timber and lumber all of his life. One of the things that he told us about oak trees is that they're one of the best deterrent for water runoff because of their massive root systems. There are not just a few trees. There are probably somewhere between 40 and 50 trees, some of them at least 100 years old. So leveling the ground and removing this natural drain stoppage is going to be very, very worrisome. And this is something that we very much want to be assured of that is not going to negatively affect this neighborhood. Another thing that has stood out in this letter, that is the same thing that I had read before when we were on West Markham, that there's a demand, this is the claim of the builder, there's a demand for a community of this type in this area to meet the needs of professionals that work at nearby hospitals. This is the identical claim made when this development was attempted on West Markham. There are other assertions. This part of West Little Rock needs a spec infill community to meet housing needs for residents who desire this location and lifestyle. I would like to challenge the developer to show his recent, documented, written research that quantify the figures that can actually affirm these assertions, that he's got a ready sale for these homes. Is that actually the fact in a neighborhood that is spotty? It has a number of apartment units. It's not, it's a nice place to live. I think it's a great neighborhood, but I am very, very concerned that if this project goes forth, that it does be successful and that there's adequate planning to make sure that water abatement is absolutely a given. If the developer is speculating on good guesses, I would urge him to get absolutely documented research to make sure that he is going to have a fairly easy sale of these crowded cookie cutter houses. One concern that I also have is that the developer did meet with some of the Raidwood neighbors, did not meet with people like the Badeaus and others in the neighborhood who could be seriously affected. I think that's incumbent upon him. We don't know what kind of sales job or an interaction that he had with the other two neighborhood associations or representatives, but I know that there are a number of questions that have yet to be answered, and we would really beg for the time to have the interaction with Mr. Chandler or his representative. Another concern, item 4 in the merger on court revised short form reads, stormwater detention ordinance applies to this property. We know that, and how does he deal with that is a real question. Detention to be supplied by underground pipe system. How does such a system work? How do we know that this system will effectively keep Pickering property from getting flooded or any other adjacent lots? Once or maybe multiple times? What if the envisioned pipe system doesn't work well or doesn't work at all? What is the builder's responsibility after this is all up and gone? Does it default to a merger on property association? Would the residents there then be blindsided that they are now responsible for deflecting water that is pouring into adjacent lots? This is a grave concern. And I think that it's very important that all of the area residents be assured that there is a system that is as fail-safe as can possibly be. One of the other concerns, and this is fairly minor, but I'm not sure whether the small print is specific. Yes, it is. The letter references a gazebo in the center and then a clubhouse, and I'm not sure which is the residents can expect. Is there to be a clubhouse, or is there actually to be a gazebo? The letter references a clubhouse, which was the situation on West Markham. It now seems to be a gazebo, although the language is not coalescing with what the plans say. One other very concerning aspect is found in the January 13th letter to Carney, and quote, "A bill of assurance is being developed to complement neighboring development to maintain/protect the values of properties in Carrollton Court." We don't know what a bill of assurance is. What is a bill of assurance going to protect Carrollton Court from? What does that indicate as far as the builder's confidence that he is going to be able to sell this to people who are going to buy houses that are very crowded together and at a very high price? We're not against development. We're for intelligent development. We're for having all of the answers out and all of the questions out and all of the answers in before making a decision. I would ask you to please defer a final judgment until we can have the Pickering area can have a meeting with Mr. Chandler and have their questions, what I think are very, very important ones, all answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would the applicant care to address these concerns?
I want to first of all thank the individuals that showed up tonight for the comments.
Excuse me,
I have
pass those out if you want.
Yes, we're going to pass out a handout. First of all, let me just say, and I forget your name, ma'am. Janet Badlin? Badger, I'm sorry. Bado, I'm sorry. We did speak on the phone, and I communicated to Ms. Bado information that had been sent. There was an error in the template. This is not the Measure Run Court that we planned for West Markham. It's the same name. There's similar characteristics to the development. So I did apologize to you for that. I do want to make note also that we did notify the owners of record. We gave that information to Mr. Cohen at the city with certified letters. We received communication from Ms. Laura Lee. She represented the neighboring POAs. We had a meeting on February the 5th at the Crown Plaza. We had approximately 40 people, 40 residents. They were in attendance. It was an hour-long meeting. In the presentation that you see, the second page from the rear, it says Measure Run Court due diligence. We proactively identified, based on a previous applicant, the challenges, questions, concerns, so that we could be transparent and address those in a proactive manner. We went through each one of these. Pat McGettrick, with McGettrick Engineers, who's here tonight, discussed the water runoff. On the map that's inside the packet that you saw on the screen, it indicated, based on staff recommendations, what we have to do as a developer to maintain the water runoff by encasing it into a 48-inch pipe underground, exiting into a culvert that already exists adjacent to the property. With regard to the pricing of the property, it's West Little Rock. Based on comps, based on completed developments, as you will see in the previous page, in your handout, there's a section that's called Patio Home Communities in Little Rock. These developments have been completed within the last 8 to 10 years. So there is a demand, and there's continued to be a demand based on the fact that residents are desiring a smaller footprint, but they want a quality home. Shelley, would you come forward, please? Talk a little bit about some of the things that we proposed.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your time this evening. And we do have a real need for people who live in Pleasant Valley and people who live in this area wanting to downsize. They love their community. They want to be a part of this community. But I had a situation just recently. We just closed on a house 2 weeks ago, a lady who lived in Pleasant Valley, and she said, I want to live in this community, but I've got to move because there's nothing that fits what I need. I want a high quality, new construction home, and I said, well, we're a few months away, hopefully, to making that a reality. In the meantime, she's had to move into a rental. The homes that are proposed by Mr. Chandler with Icon Homes are, incredible features, including 6-inch engineered hardwood floors in the homes, quartzite and marble countertops, cafe GE appliances, 10-foot high ceilings, ceramic tile or porcelain tile, designer lighting, interior solid core doors, exterior features old world charm of just brick and stone features, great quality windows with Pella or Windsor windows, zoysia lawns, precast fronts and either wood or wrought iron doors. Landscaping will be very, very nice on this property, and then also architectural shingles. This is something that the community needs. I see it every day. I hear it every day that people are looking for alternatives to having a smaller footprint. I know that Mr. McGettrick and Mr. Chandler work really hard to make the communities that they participate in something special. And we've done all of the due diligence of inviting the neighbors to come and participate in a meeting, and we had incredible, exceptional turnout at our meeting. It was pouring down rain that evening. People clapped when we ended the meeting. They were that in favor. I had several people come up to me after saying, yes, I would be interested in learning more about lots when they become available. So there is a need, even from the neighbors that are around in the community that attended the meeting.
I'm Pat McGettrick. I'm the engineer for this project. And I have looked at the drainage on it. I have talked with the city Public Works Department concerning the drainage. Currently, all the it's a sheet flow from Rainwood to the south. All the water, basically right now, sheet flows from Rainwood Drive to the south. When the development is put in, we will cut off about 80 to 85% of that sheet flow to the south. Mr. Chandler had stated in our meeting with the neighborhood association that each of the houses will have guttering, and all the water from those gutters will go out to the street, which will then go into the drainage system. So basically, the only water that is going to get to the south will be what falls on the last 3 or 4 lots on the south on the ground, because even the water that falls on those houses with guttering, it will go out to the street, into the drainage system, and then into the detention system, which will be an underground detention system, draining off into the area that currently is a drainage ditch culvert that handles the water from other developments in that area. I'll be glad to answer any questions you all have when you have it, but we are complying with all the city's requirements, their detention requirements, and we'll work with the neighbors to the south in trying to reduce any problems they have with drainage. Okay.
Can you bring back up the vicinity map, please? That shows the proposed development. on Pickering Drive, I have a development called Chambers Park that I built about 4 years ago. It's a $1 million development to the south of Rainwood. And my property's never flooded. I haven't had any problems. So I do own property already to the south of this proposed development. And I want to make the point that I'm a responsible developer. I take pride in what I do. I believe in being a good steward. And this is an opportunity, and I would request that the commission agree with staff in giving you a positive support.
My name is Clark Marshall, and I work for RPM Group.
Work for what?
Clark Marshall, and I work for RPM Group. I appreciate y'all being here tonight and hearing us out. I actually represent the interest of the seller in the property. I'm the listing agent on the property. I have actually had the privilege of being here in front of y'all before with another group trying to make a project work on this site. Currently, I would consider it a raw land site. As you know, Rainwood on that side of the street is open ditch. And the current property that's on there is a concrete block house with a small storage structure on the back. It tends to get very high in the summer. It's more a field cut area. There are a few trees on the property, but this property's not going to stay a one residential site in that location. Everything around it is built up. I mean, it would be a odd scenario to have a new single family home on a 2.42 acre site in the middle of town right there. Especially with the improvements Mr. Chandler has decided to do, it's going to improve the area tremendously with getting rid of the open ditch and bringing new product into our market, which we need currently. I have been in the real estate business for almost 15 years, and we have a strong need for these smaller patio homes, especially for retirees. And in this area of town, everybody that tends to go to Pleasant Valley Country Club and needs to downsize and wants to do something other than have a big house to take care of, this is a great project for that. And the absorption rate, previously when I was involved in the construction that we did not do, we actually probably had 5 houses pre-sold before we broke ground. So there is a strong need and want for this project. So I wanted to stand up here. I appreciate y'all.
Commissioners, questions?
Yes, just curious, did anyone quote the price point on the homes?
If I may, that is an item that we got discussed in this. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Question for staff. Is any portion of the drainage part of the variance or official part of the plan that they've proposed? I mean, is that something that you've specifically considered and approved, or?
Well, the final drainage plan hasn't been approved yet, and if I don't get to the exact answer, Mr. Hood might be able to come up and answer it more specifically. But when Mr. McGettrick talked about speaking with Public Works, that's what they were talking about. A preliminary grading, I believe, was submitted, for the property on there, and that kind of dictates what's coming to it. And then they still have to adhere to all the ordinances and the drainage manual that's been adopted by the city. And so typically when the preliminary plat is approved, once they go to the next stage, the development stage, a final development plan is submitted with a drainage study and drainage plans of how all those calculations meet per our ordinances and manuals.
So that's sort of the.
That's
when we'll.
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Commissioners? Could I please answer? Are you a commissioner? What? Brief.
I wanted to say that if it's draining into that small creek that goes around Pickering, the houses in Pickering Drive, our houses have already been flooded by there are houses on our street that have been flooded by those, the water coming from that creek already. And if he adds more to it, if there's nothing to catch some of the rain off, and if he adds more. Also, too, he said that the development that he has on Chandler Drive, which is a little cutoff of Pickering Drive, did not flood, and it has the same sloshy yard that my yard has.
I understand. Do again what the process is on drainage, because it's not a final, that he has to go through it again.
The process is, when you're in a preliminary plat stage, in which this one is, we will look at preliminary grading and drainage to see if they meet, if it's needed. And then once the preliminary plat is approved, when the developer is ready to start the actual construction, they submit development plans, or the actual construction plans of the grading of the lots and the roadways and installation of the storm drainage. At that time, they have to meet all requirements as mandated by our codes and ordinances, and contained also within our drainage manuals, which would address the concerns that they have for how the water flows pre-development and post-development and detention. And that's where Mr. McGettrick is talking about the pipes underground for the storage and detention of the property. So the final plans have not been reviewed and approved yet for the construction of the development.
Any questions, Commissioner? Motion would be in order.
Chairman Latour, I move that we approve item Z. Let's see item 6, including all staff comments and recommendations.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any other comments? Hearing none, if you're in favor of the motion, raise your hand. If you're not, then there are none. Thank you. Any citizen comments? Where did Ruth go?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I know.
I'd like to.
Oh.
Were you getting ready to
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
And I know Mr. Collier, David Collier's got some comments that he'd like to make about the planning process and whatnot, so we'll let him before we adjourn. But you're free to go if you've...
Yeah, you're free to go, everybody, or you can stay. There's two things I would like to talk about. The first thing, which is important to today, is I would like to recognize Mr. Dana Carney and his 37 years of service to the city of Little Rock, faithful service. And how many of those has been in front of this planning commission? How many? About 30 years in front of this planning commission. So he is moving on to retirement. His last day with the city will be February 28th. And I have wished him well, and I know everyone here will, and he is going to be missed, and we thank him for his service, and we will be having I wouldn't say really a party, but there's going to be a get-together that we're going to be having. I'll be happy to forward that to everybody. Y'all are welcome to attend. I believe it's like the 25th or 26th. I'll send that out here shortly. So I want to just, share, our joy of working with him all these years. And I'm going to have to do this again in front of the board. And I told a story about the first time that I met him when I wrote it down for the board. So I'll tell you a little snippet of that. When I first met him, come over there, and I've seen him before working over in Public Works, and it's this large man, and I thought, it's going to be different talking to him. When I met him, he had this demeanor that y'all have seen, very soft-spoken demeanor, and then as I got to know him, I found out that he loves to go to the Mediterranean and do trips, if he can, every year. Did you go last year? Yeah. And then he also, I found out that he enjoys rum. So I want him to spend some time with the family, go take some trips in the Mediterranean, and have a good time. And so thank you for your service. The other item I'd like to talk to the commission about is something that we talked about when the codes come through about future planning of the city, and also what I would like to see the commission achieve and go to. And I sent a challenge at the very last, we're going to start looking at planning of the city and master planning of the city. And so future, I'm going to start sending out to the commissioners kind of description ideas of where we would like to see and start looking at studies to start planning and get some input. And then I will also ask the chair to start possibly appointing some commissioners to kind of sit in on that so that y'all can be privy to and work with staff. And this will truly be, some of the planning we've been doing has been kind of automatic over the years. And I believe it's time to start sitting down in our planning activities for future growth of the city as dictated in state code, that the commission needs to have a little bit more of a vibrant role in the direction of what staff is doing. And so we're going to be starting to do that. Doesn't necessarily have to be at a work session. It could be done, other avenues, since it is not really an action item to be voted upon by the commission. But this is where we start looking at things like we've heard, parking issues downtown, and also development issues and redevelopment areas. I think it's time that the commission starts getting more involved in the master planning of the city.
I agree. When times come, I'll be appointing some of you to help us out.
And that's
Dana,
all that I have.
congratulations. You earned it, buddy. Congratulations. Anything else?
Do that mean we won't get snacks after he's gone? Or who will be in charge of snacks?
Well, Dana usually purchases those, and he purchases them in advance. So I think he purchases them like a year in advance. So you're stuck with no. If you want different ones, you can turn them in. I think we got a little bit of budget that we can buy a little bit different stuff. We just, we don't know how long we're going to be here, so we're trying to be diligent with the taxpayers' money also at the same time.
I hope the replacement doesn't get into kale chips and those kind of things. With that, we're adjourned.